To Phillips Mill Community Association's Art Talk. I'm Laura Womack, and with us is Jen McHugh, our executive producer.
Hi, everyone.
Tonight we're talking with Luiz Vilela, this year's honored artist, selected by Phillips Mill Community Association's Art Committee for his long association with our show. Luiz Vilela paints beautiful pictures, whether they're landscape or portrait, but there's something more in his paintings. People stop in their tracks and gaze at his works, like Under Paris Skies in last year's show at Phillips Mill. He was voted on to ArtTalk's People's Choice show as a result. Luiz likes to paint from life because he says photos often lie, and he tells a story that evolves from moment to moment as he's painting. Luiz Vilela studied architecture at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro and illustration at Pratt Institute in New York, as well as with Nelson Shanks at Studio Incaminati. Luiz worked at Golden Books and Random House as an illustrator. He's an award-winning artist who's exhibited at Phillips Mill for many years. Luiz, it's a pleasure to have you back on Art Talk. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome everyone who came to listen to our stories.
Terrific. And
yes,
if you,
I like the internet because it's a very nice bridge. You're in the United States.
And we like the internet because well, you're breaking up there a little bit, Luiz, and hopefully that won't be too much of a problem tonight. But we like it because it brings you to us from Brazil, even if we do have a few technical challenges. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in the audience. We love to have you join us with questions. Please put those in the Q&A, and we will prioritize those so you get a chance to ask Luiz questions. So let's start right away with your work for this year's art show, Luiz, as the honored artist. You did not go through the jury process. You put in what you chose, and you did this beautiful painting of this lovely sailboat. Tell us, first of all, why you chose this painting. Luiz?
I chose this painting because it represents mine now. And hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I picked this painting. It's called Untitled Sound. And I chose it because I thought would be pertinent because it represents my moment. I've been going to Cape Cod a lot and painting there, the Cape and the islands. And as this year is a big year of transition for me, I've been feeling a little bit solitary because I've been on the move since January and going to places. And I thought the boat, a solitary boat, would represent me and my life at the moment. So that's why I picked that one.
Well, it's a beautiful painting and masterly done. Luiz, I actually overheard visitors to the art show opening this year talking about the shadow of the boat on the water. And I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about it. This person was talking about the distinction between the bottom of the boat and the shadow of the very dark section, and then where the white, the fact that it's so dark in the water. Can you talk to us about that, please?
My process, it's usually another painting first. And, I used a lot of earth tones and dark tones, and I bring the painting from dark to light. And I think that's, this painting was developed very quickly, and it didn't take it. Perhaps I think I've done this painting in a day, and it was almost, I painted in the studio, but it was almost um, the feeling that I have when I paint something in plein air outside. And so I think the earth tones and the dark tones that you can see under the both was one of my first strokes, and I let it be. Can you put that painting again so I can see? I
We're seeing it, Luis. I think maybe,
Let me see if
yeah,
I can.
I think you're on your
Yeah,
phone, so you might have to scroll. There you go.
yeah. I cannot see that. I remember how it was.
Yeah.
Oh yes, sure. Yes, it's totally underpainting. All the earth tones around the boat were my first strokes. And then I came with that feeling, because it was a stormy day. The references that I was having, it was a stormy day, and I used gray, almost like a monotone. I didn't play with colors in this one, although the majority of my work is very colorful. This one, I would like to do a tonalist painting, and I like the way in certain areas is unfinished or not totally covered. You can see on the corners that you can see the underpainting peeping through the gray areas. I like that, when you don't complete all the four colors, all the four corners of a painting. Um, it gives something to the eye to finish.
Right. I think the one of the things that really knocks me out about this painting is the shadow. I call it shadow, but the color of white is so subtle on the sailboat in the center. You've created shadow with just white, which I think is extraordinary. Just tons
Yes,
of white.
yes, um, yes. It takes a long time, to develop painting. When I say that I've done this painting in a day, more or less, but it's actually not in a day. It took me. I've been painting for the last 40 years, and so um, usually it took me 40 years to be able to complete a painting in one day or in one session. So it requires a lot of skills, that you build little by little in your brain, and then there you go. You have all your guns, and you put that into practice.
Right, exactly. I think Jen can probably help me remember whether it was Garber or Redfield who said that when people would ask him when he was painting plein air, how long did it take you to make that painting? And he would say exactly that, 20 years.
Yes,
Jen, do you have
yes.
that on the tip? Do you?
I just remember Redfield, his famous was in one go. He would just get out there and go. But I was just looking, I love Louis, you can see the brush strokes, and it's thicker. There's a texture to it that I haven't seen in your other works.
Yes, lately I think I mentioned that in another talks that I did, and maybe in my last ArtTalk also. Um, I got to a certain plateau now that I'm very comfortable with my brush strokes. I know what I want. I know what I want to do, and mixing the paintings at the palette, um, picking the color. Usually, I have the intention to to put certain kind of colors in certain spots of my painting, and usually I don't. I'm not making too many mistakes anymore. It's very gratifying when you reach that plateau, that it comes with maturity, with practice. And I recently I had two large commissions asked for, and talking to my clients, we decided that I was going to copy uh, a Garber painting, do a master copy, which I used to do when I was in school, when I was in Pratt. I studied at Pratt in New York City, and our teachers would take us to the Metropolitan Museum, and then we have to develop a project there, copying a Rembrandt or any kind of artist. I copy a Rembrandt, which is who is the artist that I most admire. And it's very good to copy somebody's work, like a masterwork, a painting from a master, because you learn a lot about their process and everything. So I suggested to my clients, because I love Garber paintings, and I always want to copy Garber paintings to practice. And these were large pieces, 35 by 35. And when I was working, I did one first in November, December, and another painting I did in January. And I realized that all my brushstrokes were correct when I placed the brushstrokes on the canvas. I didn't have to dab or come back to fix that piece, that stroke, that piece of color. It was always right. And the color that I mixed on the palette came correct onto the canvas. So it was almost like an eureka moment. I was very glad that I was doing that. And so um,
Luis, shall we
I
take a
think I
look?
lost track.
No, I think that was great. Let's take a look at the work that had people stopped in their tracks last year. I think we're all happy to
Oh,
revisit
right.
this painting, Under Paris Sky. Tell us, I've got several questions about this, but tell us first of all about where you were as you were painting this, because as you say, your strokes, you have the confidence, you don't make many mistakes, and this is just such a lovely painting. Were you in a sort of creative trance, or what was your state of mind as you're painting this?
Yes. Well, first of all, I copy a photograph. This one I had to copy a photograph because I have a friend. He works for Louis Vuitton in Paris, and he photographs very well. And on his Instagram, his name is Rodrigo Avelar. And in his Instagram, he posted a picture of Paris, this very image. And when I looked, I love Paris. I've been there twice, and I know that site. And he told me he was on a hotel called Cheval Blanc. I think it's a new hotel in Paris. And he was in a suite at this hotel, and he took this picture. When I saw this picture, I thought I would like to translate that into painting and copying. So that's where I got the reference from. And
So
I
let me
had
ask
to
you about that,
enlarge.
Luis. There with photographs, we've had some conversations at Phillips Mill about painting from photographs, and just how a painter makes that their own. That's sort of a recurring theme that we have on the show. So when you were painting from this, were you exact in representing the composition of his photo, or did you change it up? How did you make it your own other than making it in a different medium?
Yes, the drawing is exactly the same of the photograph. I trace it, I enlarged um, a very large piece. I printed in pieces and I glued the pieces together and I enlarged the piece. So the drawing is exactly the same, but the colors I changed. You see that it's more blue, like a blue palette on that one. I exaggerate I accentuate because in the picture was more gray. And I, I thought the conversation between beige, that ochre colors of the buildings, and the blues of the sky and the rooftop would do a nice composition of a nice palette of colors. So I changed the colors um, of the image that I saw. But this painting took me quite some time to do because it's very intricate and there are layers of paintings there. I do a lot of glazing the sky, to see the the ray of lights in the sky. I had to wait to dry, and then I oiled the painting, and I come with a transparent layer of blue on top of the one that I just painted, and needs to be totally dry. So I think I took more or less 2 months to complete this painting. It's a 35 by 35 inches, so it's very large. But what made me paint, um, it was, of course, it's the Paris sky after rain or when it's raining. It reminds me the time that I was in Paris. I saw exactly like that, a scene of the sunset. And I was very intrigued by the rooftops of Paris. You're looking down to those holes, who lives there, who lives in that little window. I like uh, things mysterious. So
Yeah. No,
um,
it's a marvelous painting and it really captures Paris for anyone who's had the fortune to be there. And I think you've got some very beautiful color work also in the Seine, the river, with the shading on
yes,
the far bank and the highlights in the center of the river. It's a beautiful painting, Louise.
yes. When you're in front of it, I think the first thing you notice is the light of the sky, but you were drawn to the rooftops in the foreground. And
Right.
then your eyes travel until the end and go to the Eiffel Tower, and then goes to um, probably the left bank there, and comes back.
Right. Um, let's take, we've got some questions. Let's go back to the questions, Jen, and what have we got?
Well, the one question was from Jim. He wanted to know how big Under Paris Sky was, but Louise answered that for us. Frank
Yes.
Heron wants to know, do you do a lot of plein air painting?
I do a lot of plein air paintings, and I try to do as most as I can. I do both. I consider myself a studio painter. I like to paint in my studio, um, and I use the sketches that I did outside. I bring to the studio, and of course, I take photographs of the site I was. So using both, um, I I I look at the sketch for color reference, and 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 I paint looking at the picture that I took. But I stress that every painter should paint from life first, because it's the easiest way to paint, I think, because all the answers are in front of you. When you paint from life, when you're painting a person from life, if you know what color you should put under the eyelid and everything, you just have to open your eyes to see, because the answer is right in front of you. When you paint from photograph, um, you don't know, because all the shadows, the dark parts of the scene are changed by the camera doesn't read as the human eye reads. So it distorts the colors, especially the ones in the shadows, in the shade. And so if you print that photograph, it lies one more time. So you're totally lost if you don't have practice of painting from life. You don't know what's going to happen in the shadows. Um, but I mean, the artist can do whatever it takes for him to compose a scene, to paint a scene. I To me, it's not a taboo painting from photographs because a lot of people don't like that. But um, whatever it takes to make a painting, I think is valid. So, but I do stress when you paint from life for a long time, you when you look at a photograph, you know exactly what's going to be happening in these murky areas that the answers are not there anymore, and you have to figure it out.
You have to, or yeah, you have to, in a way, you have to make it up or go from memory. And
Yes,
I
or most of the people when they had, excuse me, most of the people when they don't know what happened with the shadows, they put black or brown because that's what the
the camera see, yeah.
read, and
Mm.
you know.
Yeah,
One story of
oh,
very
sorry.
quickly. Um, it's breaking, right?
It's breaking.
It's all back now.
You're frozen, but maybe no,
It's
now
breaking a
you're
little
back.
bit.
Please go ahead, Luis.
Now I'm back.
Yes. I was just
Um,
going, sorry, I'll just go forge ahead because I think that is breaking still. I've taken some photography classes and the professors will tell you that your eye, our brains, the way we see in life, we adjust, we understand the painting, the what's in front of us very differently than the camera does. And so the camera, as you were saying, it doesn't render it the same. And so I think if you're a painter painting from life, you know, you're going to be painting what the human eye sees rather than what the mechanical camera eye sees.
can you see me and listen me and listen?
Now we can, you're back.
And you can see me, right? Okay,
Right.
good. Because I think I was out. This painting, Resting, it's one of my most successful pieces. Everybody likes this painting. And I painted for purely from a photograph. I took a picture and I used this picture to do the painting. And it was fairly quick also because, you know, the sky, I found a light tone of blue and I put the sky, and then I start working down with the shadows. And I think the stroke of light, of luck that I have in this painting, it was that diagonal in the shadows there. Um, you know, it's a sunset scene on the Delaware River in Lambertville and depicts Lewis Island and a rower. I always like to paint the rowers in Lambertville.
It's a beautiful painting. I mean, it's if this were a photograph, I think we would say it's an extraordinary photograph. The way the light hits the building just right, that angled shadow across the tree in the background, and then the light on the rower. It's a
Yeah.
you know, it's what Cartier-Bresson would have said was, you know, I forget what he said, but the exact moment, you know, that lucky moment that the photographer gets. Was your photograph that good,
Yes.
or did you embellish?
No, if you, I embellish. If you see the photograph, I remember the photograph. It was not that great. Not, I think this painting is great, but the photograph is not good. And I accentuate the lights, you know, as I mentioned to you, you use your photo as a reference. whatever it takes to compose a painting. And this one, I use my a printout of the scene that I saw as a reference. But of course, I I don't want to say exaggerate. I embellished that, and it's it's a very poetic scene, and it's not that large. It probably is 16 by 20 or 12 by 16. I think it's 12 inches by 16 inches. It's not that large, and I did it fairly quickly also. Some pieces are winners, you know. I consider to myself, they are done in usually the ones that do very quickly. They are the winners. But I think all the paintings are already painted in my mind. You know, I consider like my paintings. It's like you imagine a tree with apples. Each apple is a painting, and this painting was done in my mind. I went just to the tree and I picked the apple and I picked the painting. You know, I extract from my brain. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's that magic creativity
And
when the music
another
flows through you. So here we are, Luis, with it's a similar subject. It's a rower. In this case, the rower is in darkness, in shadow, and the ripples around
Yes.
him are in light. And I think that's just, it's so lovely. They're both beautiful paintings.
Now, this is a different, it's the same subject matter, the rower in the river, in the Delaware River. And this painting is totally from my imagination. I did not use any reference to do this painting because I was, the way this painting happened, I was looking for motifs to paint. I was that week I couldn't paint. I was in a certain kind of a block, an artist block. And so I got up one morning and I walked on the riverbanks, and it was foggy. And by the Bucks County Playhouse, I stopped there and I looked towards Lambertville. And all of a sudden, this guy came like a swan, cutting the water, and very quiet and silence. I didn't have my cell phone to take a picture. I didn't have my camera to take a picture. So I tried to remember what I saw, and I came back to the studio and I started working this piece. This piece is large. It might be 20 by 30 inches. And I created the color palette also. I wanted to use pink, a light pink rose, and everything is brown and rose. And it's completely from my imagination and what I could remember that I saw on the river when I was there.
I think
Sometimes that works.
Yes, I think, Luis, in these two paintings, we see that you are a romantic. These are romantic paintings.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Okay, we have some
Yeah.
questions, Jen. Let's get those.
Well, Jan Marabito wanted to know if the painting was still available. And I'm not sure if she meant this one or resting.
They're both sold. Yes, they're both. This one, this rower in pink, it is with my ex-partner John. It's in the house that I used to live. But the other one resting, it is in Bucks County in a client's house.
Okay, very good. So let's go to one of your next paintings. Let's take a look at some portraits, Jen. I mean, I think it's really interesting, Luis, that you can do both these really masterful landscapes, and that you also are able to capture character so well. And those to me seem like two different skills.
Yes, yes. I think some people, you know, I consider myself, I can do whatever I want. I'm lucky that way. Some people, they specialize more in portraits, other ones in landscapes, other ones in still lifes. There are a couple of artists that I know that they can paint anything. And so far so good. I think I've been successful painting landscapes, and portraits and scenes and interiors, and I do flower paintings, also animals, and I, you know, whatever it takes me. When I see something that I want to paint, they people ask me, how do you know? How do you get your inspiration? And I'm gonna steal a phrase from Andrew Wyatt, that painter that used to live near Philadelphia. He said when he saw a scene that and he felt goosebumps in his neck, he knew that he should paint that. And so this portrait, it's James Hamilton. Um, he used to own the Hamilton Grill restaurant in Lambertville. And Jim is a very well-known, used to be a very well-known person in the area. And he helped me a lot in my art career, a great supporter of my art career. And there is this place in Lambertville, a pub called the Boathouse, a place that I painted a lot. I like the painting the building inside and outside. And I used to go there to see my friends, to have some drinks on the weekends. And very often I used to go there because it used to be 2 blocks from my house. And I used to see Jim sitting there at this table. And he usually order a drink, and he used to spend some time there reading or writing the menu of his restaurant by hand. And I kept seeing him there in this blue shirt. And one day he was sitting there. Of course, I like to give him his privacy, but there was a day that I saw this scene, and I sat with him a little bit to chat, and I asked him. I said, Jim, would you mind posing for me? I would love to paint you um, the way you are now. And so we decided to do that. He liked the idea. And he said, no, I can paint, I can come and pose for you. I said, I just need 1 hour to do a sketch. And then I'll bring the sketch to my studio and I'll do a large. So I did this painting as a sketch first, small, like this size. And I prepare all my paintings. I took the day off. At that time, I was still working in New York City, but I took the day off, and we decided on a Tuesday because there's not too many people there. And Christine, the bartender, opened the restaurant, the bar, a little bit earlier for us at 2 o'clock. So Jim sat there and did whatever he wanted to do. I asked him to wear the blue shirt, and I did in 50 minutes, less than an hour. I did a sketch, and people start coming, around 4 o'clock to have their drinks, the patrons, and they were amused by this artist painting Jim Hamilton sitting there. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. Everyone wants to know what I was doing with that. Well, later I took a photograph also, of course, and later I brought to my studio and I enlarged. I did a large piece, which is this one. It's been cut a little bit. It's more horizontal than square. And I won a couple of awards with this painting, including one at the National Arts Club. Nelson Shanks, who was my mentor, he gave me first place in portrait in a prestigious show in the National Arts Club, and Jim went there for the ceremony. And later on, I did a third take on Jim sitting on this table, just him, more like a portrait.
I mean, that's Lambertville history. That's our local history right there. Between the boat
is.
and Jim Hamilton. Yeah. Jen,
Yes, it's all landmarks.
that's right. And I know that's a sort of a home base for you too, Luis. Jen, we've got a question. Let's get the people's questions.
Sure. Luis, George wants to know, do you have a favorite palette of colors that are your go-to standard when you start a painting?
Yes, I usually use, I like my browns. I like raw umber. I have in my palette always raw umber, and I use from Winsor Newton raw umber. I have Rembrandt's transparent oxide red. I use a lot transparent oxide red. You see there is a lot of oranges in my palette. And I use another one that cannot miss is raw sienna. Raw sienna I use from Winsor Newton. And I like Indian yellow, also from Winsor Newton. And I cobalt blue. I always use cobalt blue from Gambling. Let me see. Yeah, basically these colors I cannot, permanent alizarin in crimson also from Winsor Newton. I use that one. These colors I always have in my palette.
Let's take a look at fishing in Milford. I think that does it's an interesting take on, it shows your palette there, Luis. And
yes,
I just think the colors in this is a magical painting again. So much that's wonderful about it. But since we're talking about your palette, let's start there with this painting.
You can see that. You can see all these colors there, the browns and the greens also, you know. Oh, another color that is very important to me is Viridian, and I use from Rembrandt. And you can see at the bridge, a little touch of Viridian on that green bridge in Milford. I did this painting also from a photograph, and it's a 30 by 40 inches. It's a large painting. And when I did it, the water was very placid and calm. And I thought I need to put something in the water. And I put this fisherman boat, which I steal from a painting that is at the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. I don't remember which painting, but I stole that canoe, that boat with the fishermen from one of the paintings there. Somebody told me once, if you steal well from the masters, you know. So I decided to copy that boat and put in on the water. I think it needed something there. And this painting I brought, it was awarded at the Phillips Mill a long time ago.
Do you remember the year, Luis? No.
It was circa 2010.
Yeah.
Or no, maybe earlier. 2009, 2008, 2009, 2010. I remember. And I had friends, people that saw this painting when they came to my studio to see other paintings, and they were interested in purchasing the painting. So when the show started at the patrons evening, it was sold that night. So next day came 2 clients to buy the painting, but the painting was sold.
Yeah, that's
So
why we do urge people, if they're after a certain painting, that they should become a patron for the early access, because a number of paintings do go at that
Yes.
early. Yeah, this is another one, Luis, that is very romantic painting. It makes you happy in a nostalgic sort of way to look at it. And I think that's the subject matter, the composition. But I really do
Yes.
think a lot of it is your composition. That blue in the water with your raw umbers, your browns, it's a little bit of a surprise from what we're used to seeing.
Yes.
At least from my
you know,
perspective. You tell me what you think.
my palette evolved now. I'm much more of a colorist right now, recently. This used to be, when I was fairly copying from photographs a lot. So, and the mood was more from like the old school, the old time. And I try to, pick up on the old masters, things that come from memory and more romantic, more tonalist. My paintings used to be more tonal, and I play a lot with the darks and lights, high contrast. I used to do that a lot. I use much more color. My painting style used to be thinner. I used to paint more in layers at the time, more refined. Now my style evolved to something more impasto, more raw. I make the brush strokes, the marks, and I leave that. I don't come and try to smear or dab. So my style changed a lot nowadays. This is coming back like almost 15 years, this painting.
Right. And yet it's nice to see that people are still able to paint with this incredible refinement. So I like to see
Right.
it. I'm a bit traditional and
Yes.
but of course we're enjoying your modern works as well. Okay, Jen, you choose your next painting. And while you do that, we will look at the question. We have a question from Frank, who wants to know how the art committee selects the honored artist each year, and Luis's qualifications. And it's a long association with the art show. It's not a complicated set of criteria, but it is that you've been exhibiting for a long time. Extra bonuses if the artist has a relationship with the art committee, has maybe done a service for Phillips Mill, but mainly it's a long association as an artist in our community. Would you say that, Luis? I think you certainly are qualified on that level. Yeah.
I've been showing my work since 2002. I think it's been around 20 years that I've been joining. My painting also was featured in the poster once, this one that is behind Jen. And yes, I feel very fortunate that most of the years I have few rejections. My first rejections was when I started. I didn't know how important the show was because I was new in the area, and I put whatever. And of course, hello?
Yeah, we just put Jen just put the signature image that you did up. But I'm fascinated by what you're saying. You didn't know the show and you put whatever. And then what happened, Luis?
And then it was not accepted because I think I put a sketch or something. Somehow I was rejected twice. The first 2 times that I tried. And then I talked to Janet Hunt, and because she was the one who gave me my first show in the area, and she was linked to the Phillips Mill. She encouraged me to participate the field. And then once I got accepted the third time, and then I don't remember being rejected anymore. Maybe once in this 22 years. And so I've been very fortunate that I'm always showing my work there.
Right. And this year, I think the show looks a little bit different. I mean, it always depends on who the jurors are and what they select, but it looks a little different this year, doesn't it, Luis?
It does. It
What do you-
does. It's a little bit more modern.
It
right?
is. It is.
More
It's a more
contemporary.
modern show
I
this year.
Contemporary, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing too many traditional paintings there.
That's right. Yeah, and it's always a surprise to us what the show they select. All right, we have time. We have a little bit more time. Let's take a look. Luis, do you want to talk about the Phillips Mill picture, or do you want to talk about one of your more recent works that you've sent us?
I can show them people one of my recent paintings that I've done here in Brazil to a client of mine. He commissioned me to do 3 scenes, cityscapes, and for his apartment. He's just finishing up an apartment now in the area here in one of the towns. And he commissioned me a large painting of Rio de Janeiro, one of the Brazilian cities here. I'm going to show you the bay, the Rio de Janeiro Bay. I did in purple. I used a photograph as a reference, but then I went wild. I said, I'm going to do this painting in purple and everything from purple. And then he liked it so much that he asked me for 2 small paintings, which I did 2 squares of 2 other cities in Brazil, capitals, São Paulo, and then Belo Horizonte, the capital of my state. And let me see if you can, I'll try to bring close to the camera so you can see details.
Okay, that would be great. And then when you come back, Luis, I'm just curious if you decided to do purple or if your client requested purple. Oh yeah, there we go.
Can you
Giant.
see? I don't know if the lighting is good, but
Yeah, we
it's
can
large.
see it.
It's a large,
Yeah, come
for
closer,
me,
please.
It's a large piece. You can see the Sugarloaf Mountain around
Great.
here, and the marina with the boats in the water. It's a night scene. And
Fabulous. Now, Luis,
it's a
when
large
did you
thing.
paint this?
In March, I was
Okay.
in Brazil. I was in Brazil early. I was here early this year. I came in January to work in some commission works in Brazil, and I stay until May. So I work in several paintings. So this one is one of the cityscapes at night also.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, it's
So
like
this is like a different painter did this, Luis.
right, comparing to the boats on the water, right?
Yeah.
It looks different. And I have this other one here also. It's the Museum of Modern Art in São Paulo, and the main drag, Avenida Paulista with the towers. It's a night scene also.
Right.
So
now
he wants
a cityscape. So come tell us how you enjoy painting in this style versus the sort of romantic traditional style.
I like both. I don't say that I'm not going to paint in that moody style, old school, calm, more refined. I might do that, but I think an artist evolves, and I start taking classes with David Leffel. It's an artist who used to teach at Art Student League. And now he lives in Taos, New Mexico, with his wife, Sherry McGraw. They are very well known. And I follow him a lot in the last decade. And Leffel, he paints, the way he paints, he told me that one of the things he told me, he said, pay attention to your brush strokes. A brush stroke has beginning and end, and you don't come back. You can come back once or twice. And I start paying attention on the application of paint on the canvas. It's a more direct approach that he does, and I want my painting style to evolve towards that. So that's why I start doing this, and it's more impromptu. And I have a small piece of my great niece that I did.
That is so beautiful, Luis.
It's a small painting, and I just saw her yesterday. She's 1 year and 3 months, and this is when she was born, early this year, last year. And I did a small, so I do portraits also. I'm working in some, here in Brazil, I'm working some, this is the back of a woman, the neck, and she's wearing a turban and lace and some jewelry. So I'm planning to start a project in using the Black people in Brazil, their culture and their history. So I might show this in São Paulo. I don't know when yet, but I'm starting to develop a lot of paintings depicting the Black people. And I'm reading books. I'm studying the history of Brazil again. And this is a sketch that I did of these Black ladies wearing gowns, white gowns. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. And I think, you know, where you are, sense of place really does make a difference in subject matter. So romantic pictures of the river, we're going to see your vibrant pictures of Brazil now.
Yes, I think you're going to see more of these now, you know, than where I am. It reflects, right? In my life, they said, why do you paint? I said, well, I want to paint what I see and places that I've been to, and people that I meet along the way in my life. So wherever I am, I'm painting. I was on Cape Cod in the COVID time during the pandemic. The only place I visit was Cape Cod because I have a house there that I can stay on the Cape, and it's a little isolated. So we could go to Cape Cod during the pandemic and be safe. So I would go to Provincetown early in the morning, and I used to paint there in the streets and do sketches. So the last 2 years, my production reflected Cape Cod. I have a lot of scenes of Cape Cod. Now being in Brazil, I think I'm gonna do more Brazilian stuff. Let's see. I'm excited.
That's wonderful. And that anticipates some of the questions we had for you at the end. We're excited as well, Luis. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your beautiful work and technique with us on ArtTalk.
Always a pleasure, Laura. And it's a joy to share, you know, not only visually what I do, but what's here, right?
Join us anytime. You're always welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you also to Jean Mahich for producing this show tonight with Luiz Vilela. Thank you to our content producer, Dennis Riley, and our executive producer, Jen McHugh. Thank you all for joining us on ArtTalk. Next month, we're going to do a spotlight on drama at Phillips Mill with our annual Emerging Playwrights competition. We'll be talking with the head of drama, Valerie Eastburn, and longtime contributor, Fran Young. Thank you so much. We hope to see you then, 4th Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Thank you so much and good night.